She was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a role model, and an advocate for change. Her death sparked conversations about domestic violence, gun control, and justice for women. Love, fame, and ambition intertwined in a dazzling romance, until one fateful Valentine's night turned passion into tragedy. What really happened behind the closed doors of Oscar Pistorius' home? Reeva Steenkamp was more than just a beautiful face. She was a vibrant soul with dreams and ambitions that transcended the glimmer of her modeling career. Born on August 19, 1983, in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, Reeva grew up with a strong sense of independence. She excelled in academics, attended the University of Port Elizabeth, and eventually earned a degree in law. Her keen mind and passion for justice were evident even in her early years. As a model, she graced the covers of numerous magazines, becoming a well-known figure in South Africa. But beneath the glamorous exterior lay a woman who yearned for deeper connections and meaningful relationships. Her friends often described her as compassionate and fiercely loyal, traits that endeared her to many. Reeva was not just a public figure. She was a beloved daughter, a supportive friend, and a woman with aspirations of making an impact in the world. Oscar Pistorius, known as the Blade Runner, was a symbol of resilience and determination. Born on November 22, 1986, with a congenital condition that led to the amputation of both his legs below the knee, Oscar defied the odds. His journey from the playing fields of Pretoria to the Olympic Games was nothing short of inspirational. He became the first double amputee to compete in the Olympics, capturing the hearts of millions with his incredible athleticism and spirit. Oscar was celebrated not only for his achievements in sports but also for his charm and charisma. He exuded confidence, often speaking about overcoming challenges and inspiring others. However, behind this public persona lay a complex individual grappling with personal demons and a tumultuous past. His relationship with Reeva marked a significant chapter in his life, intertwining their fates in ways that would later unravel in tragedy. Reeva and Oscar's paths crossed in late 2012 at a party hosted by a mutual friend. The chemistry between them was palpable, igniting a connection that both found exhilarating. They shared laughter, stories, and a mutual admiration that quickly blossomed into romance. For Reeva, Oscar represented a man who had conquered adversity, while for Oscar, Reeva embodied beauty and intelligence. Their whirlwind relationship became the talk of the town, drawing media attention and public interest. Both were in the prime of their lives, navigating love amidst their individual successes. As they spent more time together, they began to envision a future filled with shared dreams and aspirations, unaware of the dark turn their love story would soon take. As Valentine's Day approached, Reeva and Oscar's relationship deepened. They shared intimate moments, from quiet dinners to adventurous outings. Their bond seemed unbreakable, filled with laughter and affection. Reeva often spoke of her dreams of starting a family, while Oscar expressed his desire for love and stability. Yet, beneath the surface, challenges loomed. Oscar's intense drive for success sometimes manifested as possessiveness, a trait that began to surface in their relationship. Reeva, ever the strong-willed woman, sought to balance her independence with her love for Oscar. Friends noticed the subtle shifts in the dynamic but remained hopeful that their love would prevail. Valentine's Day 2013 was meant to be a celebration of their love. Reeva had planned a romantic evening, filled with thoughtful surprises. She envisioned candlelit dinners, heartfelt gifts, and a night to remember. Oscar, too, was eager to make the day special, planning a surprise for Reeva that would showcase his affection. In the days leading up to Valentine's Day, excitement filled the air. Reeva shared her plans with friends, glowing with happiness. Little did they know that this day, meant for love and joy, would soon be marked by heartbreak and tragedy. As the sun set on February 13, 2013, the couple prepared for a night that would change their lives forever. As the sun set on February 14, 2013, a warm breeze swept through Pretoria, South Africa. Inside the luxury home of Oscar Pistorius, excitement filled the air. The couple had planned a romantic evening, celebrating their love with dinner and gifts. They had only been dating for a few months, but their bond felt intense and electric. Reeva Steenkamp, a talented model and aspiring actress, had spent the day preparing for the occasion. She carefully selected an outfit that highlighted her beauty, exuding confidence and charm. As she arrived at Oscar's home, she was met with candles and soft music, setting the perfect mood for their Valentine's Day. But as the clock ticked closer to midnight, the atmosphere shifted. Unbeknownst to Reeva, a sense of dread loomed over the evening. Both individuals were unaware that moments later, their lives would be irrevocably altered. Around 3 a.m., the tranquility of the night shattered with a single gunshot. Oscar, in a state of panic, believed an intruder had entered his home. He grabbed his gun and rushed towards the bathroom where he thought the intruder was hiding. In a moment of sheer terror, he fired 4 shots through the closed door. Inside the bathroom, Reeva, who had been using her phone, became the victim of that fateful decision. The bullets struck her, and in an instant, the joy of their evening was replaced by horror. Oscar's heart raced as he opened the bathroom door, realizing the gravity of what had just occurred. He rushed to Reeva, who lay on the floor, gravely injured. Her lifeless body was a haunting sight, and panic surged through him. Desperate, he called for help, his voice cracking with fear and confusion. As emergency services arrived, Oscar's mind raced with conflicting emotions, shock, guilt, and disbelief. The paramedics worked frantically, but Reeva had already succumbed to her injuries. The love that had filled the room just hours before was now replaced with tragedy. The sirens wailed as police and paramedics descended upon the scene. Officers quickly began to assess the situation, trying to piece together what had transpired. Oscar, still in shock, was questioned by the authorities. He recounted his version of events, insisting that he had acted out of fear, believing an intruder had entered his home. As the investigation unfolded, the media began to gather outside, their presence a harbinger of the storm that would soon engulf the young athlete's life. The reality of the situation began to sink in for all involved, as they grasped the enormity of the loss. News of Reeva's death quickly spread like wildfire. The next day, headlines screamed across newspapers, detailing the shocking events. Blade Runner's tragic Valentine's Day, and model shot dead, dominated the front pages. Social media exploded with reactions, and public interest surged. Oscar's image as a national hero, celebrated for his achievements in athletics, began to fracture. The narrative shifted from admiration to scrutiny. People wanted answers. The public, once enamored with Pistorius, now questioned his character and motives. Speculation ran rife, and soon, the courtroom would become a battleground for truth. As the story unfolded, reactions poured in from every corner of South Africa and beyond. Friends and family of Reeva expressed the disbelief and sorrow. Social media platforms became a space for mourning, with hashtags like #JusticeForReeva trending worldwide. The public was divided. Some rallied behind Oscar, while others condemned his actions. Reeva's loved ones painted a picture of a vibrant woman full of dreams and aspirations, while Oscar's supporters argued that he was a victim of circumstance, a man who had acted in self-defense. The emotional turmoil surrounding the case deepened, as the nation grappled with questions of love, loss, and justice. The investigation into Reeva's death began immediately. Detectives combed through the crime scene, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses. Neighbors reported hearing a heated argument earlier that evening, adding a layer of complexity to the narrative. The police sought to reconstruct the timeline leading up to the shooting. As forensic experts examined the ballistic evidence, the implications of Oscar's actions became clearer. The investigation was not just about the tragic event but also about understanding the dynamics of the relationship between Oscar and Reeva, one that had captivated the public's imagination. As the investigation progressed, Oscar's legal team prepared for what would become a highly publicized trial. Their defense strategy centered around the argument of self-defense. They aimed to portray Oscar as a man living in fear, a disabled athlete who was vulnerable and had acted instinctively to protect himself. The complexities of the case were compounded by Oscar's public persona. His story as an inspirational figure who overcame adversity would be juxtaposed with the tragedy that unfolded that night. The trial promised to be an emotional rollercoaster, drawing in countless spectators eager for insight into the unfolding drama. Reeva Steenkamp was more than just a victim. She was a woman with dreams, ambitions, and a vibrant personality. Growing up in Port Elizabeth, she had always aspired to be in the spotlight. Her modeling career took off, and she became a well-known figure in South Africa, not just for her beauty but for her intelligence and advocacy for women's rights. As the trial approached, her family and friends sought to honor her memory. They shared stories of her kindness, her sense of humor, and her passion for life. Reeva's legacy would become a focal point in the narrative, reminding everyone of the person behind the headlines. With the trial looming, the media's role became increasingly pronounced. Coverage intensified, and various outlets vied for exclusive interviews and insights. The courtroom became a spectacle, with reporters and cameras capturing every moment. The public was fascinated, and the media often sensationalized details, further complicating the narrative. As opinions divided, discussions around media ethics emerged. Questions about the fairness of coverage and the impact on the trial process became hot topics. The case highlighted the fine line between public interest and the right to privacy, raising important ethical considerations. On March 3, 2014, the courtroom filled with spectators, journalists, and family members. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Oscar Pistorius sat at the defendant's table, flanked by his legal team, his demeanor a mixture of defiance and vulnerability. The trial was not just about the night of the shooting. It was a reflection of societal values, celebrity culture, and justice. Judge Thokozile Masipa presided over the proceedings, her calm and authoritative presence commanding respect. As the trial commenced, the prosecution laid out its case. They painted a picture of a man who had acted recklessly, emphasizing the tragic loss of Reeva's life. The prosecution aimed to dismantle Oscar's claims of self-defense, suggesting that he had acted impulsively rather than out of fear. The courtroom buzzed with tension as witnesses took the stand. Neighbors recounted the sounds they heard that night, shouting followed by gunfire. Their testimonies painted a vivid picture of the chaos that had unfolded, raising doubts about Oscar's narrative. Some described hearing a woman's scream, which added layers of complexity to the case. The emotional weight of their accounts affected everyone present. Reeva's family listened intently, the grief palpable as they sought to understand what had happened to their beloved daughter. In a pivotal moment of the trial, Oscar Pistorius took the stand. He appeared vulnerable, his voice trembling as he recounted the night of the shooting. He described his fear of an intruder, his intentions to protect himself, and the moment he realized he had shot Reeva. His testimony was a mix of anguish and confusion, as he struggled to reconcile his actions with his love for her. The courtroom sat in rapt attention, caught between sympathy for a man in pain and the reality of the tragedy he had caused. Throughout the trial, Reeva's family remained a constant presence in the courtroom. Her mother, June, was particularly vocal, often seen wiping away tears as she listened to the testimonies. The family had come to represent not just Reeva, but the countless women affected by domestic violence. They shared stories of Reeva's kindness and the dreams she had for the future. The grief was a reminder of the personal loss behind the legal proceedings, and they became advocates for justice, determined to honor Reeva's memory. As the trial progressed, psychological evaluations became a focal point. Experts testified about Oscar's mental state, exploring his history of anxiety and how it might have influenced his actions that night. The defense argued that Oscar lived in a constant state of fear due to his disability and previous incidents of crime in his neighborhood. The prosecution countered, suggesting that his actions were not those of a frightened man but of someone who acted recklessly. The courtroom became a battleground for expert opinions, each vying to shape the narrative surrounding Oscar's character and intentions. As the trial unfolded, public sentiment began to shift. Oscar's supporters stood by him, believing in his innocence and portraying him as a victim of circumstance. However, as more evidence was presented, backlash grew among those who viewed him as a privileged athlete evading justice. Social media buzzed with debates, and protests emerged, demanding accountability for domestic violence. The case highlighted the complexities of public opinion and the challenges of navigating a high-profile trial in the court of public sentiment. On September 11, 2014, the world watched as the verdict approached. Tension filled the courtroom as Judge Masipa prepared to deliver her decision. The air was thick with anticipation, and the stakes could not have been higher. Oscar's future hung in the balance, as did the hopes of Reeva's family for justice. The judge began to read her ruling, methodically addressing the charges against Oscar. The courtroom fell silent, every eye fixed on her, the weight of the moment palpable. When she announced the verdict on the culpable homicide charge, emotions erupted, filling the room with a mix of relief and despair. As the judge declared Oscar guilty of culpable homicide, gasps echoed throughout the courtroom. Reeva's family embraced, tears of relief mingling with sorrow. For them, it was a step toward justice, a recognition of the loss they had endured. Meanwhile, Oscar sat in stunned silence, his world crashing down around him. The judge emphasized the need for accountability, stating that Oscar's actions were reckless, but not premeditated murder. The verdict sparked heated discussions nationwide, with opinions divided on whether justice had truly been served. The sentencing phase began, and the courtroom once again filled with spectators eager for closure. The prosecution argued for a lengthy prison sentence, emphasizing the need to send a strong message about domestic violence. They highlighted Reeva's life, cut short, and the impact on her family. The defense sought leniency, arguing that Oscar's life had already been irrevocably altered. Character witnesses were presented, who testified to his significant contributions to society and his influential role as a public figure. The judge faced the daunting task of balancing justice with compassion. On October 21, 2014, the judge delivered Oscar's sentence, 5 years in prison for culpable homicide. The reaction was immediate and intense. Reeva's family felt a sense of justice, but many in the public believed the sentence was too lenient for the crime. As Oscar was led away, the complexities of the case weighed heavily on the nation. The trial had exposed deep-seated issues surrounding domestic violence, privilege, and justice in South Africa. The dialogue around these topics was far from over. In the months following the trial, Reeva's legacy grew. Her family established the Reeva Steenkamp Foundation, focusing on raising awareness about domestic violence and advocating for women's rights. They aimed to honor her memory by fighting for those who could not fight for themselves. Reeva became a symbol of resilience, representing countless victims of violence. Her story resonated with many, sparking conversations about the importance of addressing domestic violence and supporting survivors. Public awareness campaigns emerged, encouraging open conversations about domestic violence. The case served as a catalyst for change, highlighting the urgent need for societal transformation. As the dialogue surrounding domestic violence intensified, communities began to take action. Support groups formed, and educational programs were launched to raise awareness about the signs of abuse. The tragic events surrounding Reeva's death brought to light the prevalence of domestic violence in South Africa. Activists mobilized, creating platforms for survivors to share their stories. The importance of listening to and supporting victims became a central theme in the ongoing fight against domestic violence. The media's role in the trial prompted discussions about ethics and responsibility. Journalists grappled with the challenge of balancing public interest with the need for sensitivity. The sensationalism surrounding the case raised questions about the impact of media coverage on the judicial process. Oscar Pistorius's life changed dramatically following the trial. After serving just over a year in prison, he was released under house arrest. The stigma of the case lingered, and he struggled to rebuild his public persona. Once celebrated as a symbol of triumph over adversity, he now faced scrutiny and judgment. Living under the watchful eye of the media, Oscar grappled with his identity and the consequences of his actions. The world had shifted, and he was forced to confront the reality of his choices and their impact on those around him. The Reeva Steenkamp Foundation became a beacon of hope for many. Through workshops, educational programs, and outreach initiatives, the foundation worked tirelessly to combat domestic violence. They provided resources and support for survivors, aiming to create a safe space for healing and empowerment. Reeva's family poured their hearts into the foundation, determined to ensure that her legacy would lead to positive change. The foundation became a testament to Reeva's spirit, reminding others of the importance of love, compassion, and advocacy. The case inspired numerous documentaries and films, each aiming to explore the complexities of the events that transpired. Filmmakers sought to capture the emotional weight of the story, delving into the lives of Reeva, Oscar, and the broader societal implications. These productions sparked renewed interest in the case, bringing the conversation back to the forefront. They served as powerful reminders of the tragedy, urging viewers to reflect on the issues of violence and justice. Social media played a significant role in shaping narratives around the case. Discussions, debates, and campaigns unfolded on platforms like Twitter and Facebook. Activists utilized these tools to raise awareness and mobilize support, creating a global dialogue about domestic violence. The case became a catalyst for conversations about privilege, justice, and accountability. Social media empowered individuals to share their stories, amplifying voices that had long been silenced. Advocates pushed for changes to the legal system to better protect victims of domestic violence and ensure accountability for perpetrators. The case highlighted shortcomings in the existing framework and underscored the need for comprehensive reforms. In interviews following his release from prison, Oscar shared his reflections on the events that transpired. He expressed remorse for the pain he had caused and acknowledged the gravity of his actions. However, he maintained his stance that he had acted out of fear, struggling to reconcile his emotions.